All right. So I built an online business. I built an online seven-figure business, and then I just disappeared. And I'm going to tell you what happened. So when I say disappeared, by the way, I don't mean that I just stopped doing the business. Well, it's sort of. What happened was, in fact, let me go all the way back. The business I built was in public speaking. So before the public speaking online business, what happened is I used to be an illusionist. From there, I learned how to get gigs. I was like speaking on stage, well, performing on stages at first. I perform as an illusionist, mentalist. I get hired by all these like corporate companies, Aflac, AAA, Remax, all these guys. I would fly to Finland, everywhere. And so I'd get hired, and the way I got hired was through marketing. I would basically reach out through cold emails. I would say like, hey, I'm the greatest entertainer alive. Come bring me in. And so I'd reach out through cold emails. Then I get booked by all these big Fortune 500 companies, Booz Allen Hamilton, all these guys. Then I transitioned into being a speaker. And when I became a speaker, a lot of these guys, they were asking me like, how am I getting hired by all these companies? So I then took what I knew in terms of what I was doing, and I put it into an online program. I said, here's the CRM, the setup for the CRM, the lead score, the email templates, all this stuff. I put it into an online program. And when I put it into an online program, I started doing what everyone else was doing. I was creating like a lot of content and all that sort of stuff in terms of here's how you get yourself booked on stages and all that with public speaking stuff. Now, I believe the reason why everyone liked it is because I was really direct. So what I hated the most with a lot of people who created content is that they weren't direct. They were just, it seemed like they would read books and they didn't really know what they were talking about because they weren't doing what they were teaching. And I was making so much money doing it that I didn't actually care to teach it too much. So like I'm talking about, I was getting paid like 10 grand for like 30 minutes and getting 20 grand, and I'd fly to Finland, all this stuff. So it didn't make sense to me to sell an online program until I made it six figures in a month. And I thought, wow, okay, six figures in a month just by kind of creating some content, doing some ads. And I was like, all right, maybe I should pay attention to this thing. So what happened was I built the online business, and I eventually people were asking me like, can I book the gigs for them? And I said, absolutely not. I was like, you're never going to find anyone to book gigs for you. The people who can do it, they're just not going to do it for free or anything like that, because the speakers, they wanted someone to do it for a commission. So it's like, book the gigs for me, and I'll give you a 10%, 15% commission. So like, that's not going to happen. And this was like way back when I first started. And eventually I'm building an online business. I'm creating all this content. I'm doing mostly ads. Ads is where all the money came from. So I'm doing all these ads, building the email list. I didn't worry about social media followers at all. I could care less about them. In fact, when I did the first six-figure month, I think I had maybe 700 Instagram followers or something, but I had a big email list. And so, so basically I'm building up this online business, doing ads, converting them into this online program. And eventually it hit me. I was like, you know what? Why don't I just freaking offer this whole thing where we actually book the speakers on stages? So that's what I started doing. I said, hey, if you're a speaker, you want us to book the gigs for you, let me know. And then we would charge them a monthly fee. What happened is a few people, of course, said, yes, let's do it. So I took on a few people. I got our systems set up for that. Once I got that set up, then I increased the price. And then eventually I realized like, well, the amount of work that we're putting in just to get paid monthly, it wasn't worth it. And so I said, okay, let's do monthly and let's get a commission. And then what happened, the reason why I disappeared is because I think it was a combination of the reputation in terms of the content that I was putting out, plus how we were booking the speakers. What happened was we got some really, really big clients, like a few big time speakers where they wouldn't even wake up for less than six figures, like some really big time guys. If I told you who they were, you would know who they were. So they asked me to book the gigs for them. So I got the whole team together. Like, hey, let's focus on these guys. And that's when I stopped doing all the online stuff, because with the online, sure, we can sell the programs, but we were making way too much off of booking these big time speakers because we were charging $5,000 a month plus a commission fee. And so the more gigs we booked for them, the more we made. So what happened was I retreated. I retreated from the online space. I basically built an actual agency, an actual marketing agency, and it went from just speakers to just being creators in general, doing all this other marketing agency stuff. And that's kind of what happened. And I ended up building a separate brand and like a different niche entirely. And that's basically why I disappeared. What a lot of creators don't seem to understand is that if you want to actually make seven figures in the industry, you have to focus on the money. Like it's that simple. A lot of people, they focus on followers, and of course, followers are great and all, but you have to focus on the money. As soon as I realized, okay, these speakers are going to pay us the most money, boom, we transitioned into a complete full-blown marketing agency at that point. And then the money wasn't in the content. I think people, they watch like too much Gary Vaynerchuk and all these other guys where they see these top creators who are making a lot of money. They're producing a lot of content. They keep saying you got to produce content, produce content. And yes, yeah, you should produce content, but that's only if the content is actually generating the money. You have to get close to the money. So whatever's the closest to the money, that's the activity you should be doing the most. The closest to the money for us was actually reaching out to these speakers or other businesses, other creators, reaching out to them saying, hey, we'll generate the leads and the sales for you. And then you just pay us this much monthly, the retainer, plus the commission that we're going to make. And then boom, it worked like crazy. So us producing content didn't make any more sense. So the content production, it's more of just something that, like, do I want to do it? Then sure, I'll do it. And that's basically what a lot of creators don't do is when I see most people who are focusing on getting followers, they're building their business wrong. So if your amount of followers is bigger than your bank account, you're building your business wrong. So you should focus strictly on the revenue, how you're actually gonna make the money from the whole thing. The way I built the online business is I spent money on ads. So at first I was producing a lot of content, like a ton of freaking content. I was doing live streams, all that sort of stuff. I produced a ton of content. It wasn't until I started spending money on ads where I actually started making all the money. And your fear of money keeps you from making money. Your fear of spending money keeps you from making any money. I didn't really care to spend any money at first. And then once I started spending the money, then boom, the whole online business just skyrocketed. And most people, they're just afraid to spend money in general. I didn't have a crazy funnel at all. Like it's weird to me how everyone talks about this funnel, that funnel, this funnel, that funnel. Like the only thing that you have to do is build your email list. So you basically figure out what's the opt-in, what's the landing page that that people are going to opt into. So like what's the offer that people want. And then from there, you get them on your email list. Once they're on your email list, you can do a million different things. That's the only funnel you need. Just get them to your freaking email list. And that's essentially what I did. So I figured out that the best funnel for booking the speakers was, or well, for getting them on my email list in the public speaking thing, it was two things. It was one, like, hey, here's a list of events that can hire you. And two, like here you can sign up to the newsletter where we actually show you the emails that we're sending out to book these speakers, to book all these guys on stages. So you can literally read and just copy and paste what we're doing when you're actually reaching out to these events. So once I figured that out, spent a gang load of money on ads, built up the email list, boom, sold the online course. Once I sold the online course, I made the offer of, hey, we can actually book the gigs for you. You just pay this much. Eventually, we got so many people, it was like, okay, now you got to pay this much plus the commission. Then it got to a point where it's like, okay, now we're not even working with speakers who don't charge at least $100,000 or more because it just doesn't make sense. So that's kind of what happened. That's why I ended up disappearing, because it simply wasn't worth it to create the content when we had to focus on this one thing. A lot of people, they just lack the focus. And you have to have this laser focus. People seem to think like the opposite. Like if you don't exist online, they're like, oh, he's not making a ton of money. I've noticed the exact opposite of that. I've noticed that people who don't have large followings are usually the ones who make a ton of money. The people who have large followings, they're usually not making a ton of money. When I lived in the high rise in Vegas, there were like a ton of people who had a ton of followers. I knew several girls, they had millions of followers. They weren't making any money. Then I knew people who had like 10,000 followers, or another guy who had like 3,000 followers. They were millionaires, multimillionaires. And so it's not about like followers or anything. It's about how you monetize everything. So that's essentially all I really wanted to say.